Hey there, my name's Joe Keyport, and you're listening to the Ear Coffee Podcast. This week, I talked to Nick, John, Charlie, Ross, and Chris of the Hex Girls about Pop Fluff, the band's new record. The album was released on April 2nd and is a dive into the darker side of the human psyche. You definitely need to go give the album a spin if you haven't, as it sounds like the glammier side of 70s punk with a fair bit of grit. It's the Hex Girls, right here on the Ear Coffee Podcast. How are y'all doing?
Doing great.
So good.
Before we jump into the questions themselves, can we just have a quick introduction of everybody so they can maybe at least put a name to the voice? This isn't on video, unfortunately, so they can't quite see who's responding. So an introduction of who you are and what you do in the band. I don't know if we want to start with Nick. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm Nick. I sing and play bass.
I'm John, sing and play some guitar.
I'm Chuck. Charlie. Everyone calls me Chuck. I play guitar.
Ross, go ahead.
I'm Ross. That was Christian. I play keyboards. I am the band's producer. I previously played drums. I currently feel like I look the best on camera. And I'm sure I sound the worst on the audio. So.
I'm Christian. I'm the muscles, the brains, and I play drums, and that's it.
Awesome. Well, starting things off, let's just take me through the beginning of the band. How did Hex Girls kind of begin? Because you're based out of Cedar Falls now. You started as kind of a three-piece in your smaller hometown. Take me through those beginning years of the Hex Girls and how we made it to, where we are here today on recording this March 23rd, year of our Lord, 2021.
Hey, go ahead, John.
I guess it started like me and Nick and Charlie. Well, me and Nick are brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So we were together for a while, but we went to the same high school. Not that we didn't do any music together or anything, but it was actually after I left high school. I was like, man, I'm bored. Music seems cool. I guess I'll learn guitar. So like Chuck brought over a guitar and I'm still learning, but we got together and would try some stuff in our basement back in Phoenixville, and then we eventually all moved up to Cedar Falls and started going to the Octopus and a few other bars around the area and meeting people, and just to try to surround ourselves with people who are better than I am at what I do, in hopes that they make my better.
As you said, you weren't quite doing music stuff in high school. When did that kind of interest y'all?
Well, I was playing guitar already. Like I started when I was like 12 something and taking lessons and stuff. And then Nick and John knew I play guitar, and we knew like we kind of music. Then we just started kind of hanging out. They were like, "Hey, you play guitar?" For that, so they invited me over and started hanging out, doing that kind of thing. Also, just messing around, doing stuff.
Yeah, I think
so. That John, I think, got his first guitar in 2015, probably.
Something, I don't know.
yeah. But we bonded over, I think, the White Stripes originally.
Yeah.
Three of us kind of were connected by that, but I got into music because I used to write poetry, still do, and thought it was a natural outlet for that that creative vibe.
So were you playing around when you were growing up? When you decided to maybe try and do stuff together, were you playing around really in kind of Mechanicsville, or at least trying to be like a garage band just for fun, or was it? Or
I think we're probably the only rock band to ever come out of Mechanicsville and probably ever will. We're kind of the odd ones out in terms of music. We didn't even know local scenes existed until we came to Cedar Falls. It was just such I don't know, I think for people from small towns, they understand that you're very sequestered and
Mm-hmm.
Creatively, artistically, and so I think it was a big a big move to get out of that vibe and really get it, let ourselves be creative, pursue it.
So then moving to Cedar Falls, when did the idea to like form a band first kind of come together and something beyond just, hanging out and playing music together? Because was it Ross you met first, or at least joined the band first?
Ross, do you remember how that went down?
Well, sort of. It was kind of like they started playing shows. I think they were kind of playing shows with another member in their band previously to coming to Cedar Falls, really, or maybe just as you guys came to town. And then they were playing shows that would occasionally have him, or they occasionally wouldn't. And I do some sound engineering for the Octopus, kind of as a side gig. And I was like, oh, these dudes are fun, man, and they're all super nice. They're like cuddly little kittens and shit. And I want to be your friend. And I decided I was like, oh, well, I should pop a bear these boys and help them figure it out. And I could tell they'd like, I worked at a local music store up here, and they'd come in, they'd buy stuff and just be super cool. And kind of like when you start noticing like the new chick that moved to town, you're like, oh, what's really your deal? Or the new boy, depending on which way your feathers flap. And they came in one time. The one thing I really remember is that they came in and they were like, oh, we want to get this loop pedal because our drummer's a freaking tool. And I not word for word, but they were like, oh, it's frustrating because he can't ever play shows, and we're gonna do this other project where we have us play to a backup drum track. And being that I've seen a lot of people do stuff like that, I was kind of like, oh, I hope you guys do this, but you should not do that. Maybe don't do that.
You should get a real drummer.
Yeah. And I drums are like my main thing. And I was like, hey dudes, how about I produce your new record? I'll be your drummer, tell you figure it out or find like the dude forever. And I have another band that was really active at that time. And I was like, playing shows is fun. And then we made a dope album, and I was really happy and proud of my young little ducklings. And I was like, I'm gonna keep floating these dudes down the stream. And then we started making another record, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in the band forever. This is me. and we all grew into a flock. And then all of a sudden we were like, our bird nest is too small. We need more birds. We need a bigger nest. And then we saw Christian, and Christian was like, just the egg worth cracking, And I think that about brings it up. I was like, I want to do more stuff. I want more people to look at me, and like, it doesn't really happen when you sit behind drums. And drums are like heavy, and I don't like moving them. And I was like, oh, I could play keyboards and get Christian to play drums. Tight.
The ulterior motive. You don't want to carry as much stuff.
I actually like legit quit playing drums for a good like 5 or 6 years because I was like, I'm tired of moving stuff all the time. And then I got bored. I thought I could play guitar good enough to like be in a band. And then I realized that like everybody plays guitar and nobody plays drums. And I was like, I should probably play drums.
So that your first record, which was more of that, was that just a 4-piece then? The four of you?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. So then, because Christian, Chris, you're the most recent edition, which was last-ish year, right?
That's right. That is right.
So then, how did you connect with the 4-piece then to play drums?
Well, like we talked about, the Octopus is kind of seems like the central hub for anyone who plays music or anything in this town. And I've played in like a handful of like just bands at Octo. I played shows with the Hex Girls. in other bands. We've been on the same bill and stuff, and good friends. We were always good pals and stuff. And I think it just kind of came up again. Ross wanting to move to doing more of a key thing, and just again, it cracking that egg, And I'm fully yoked, dude. So it was
just yoked.
Like omelet boy.
Like I said, I'm the strongest member of the band.
It's true.
And anyway, so so that's kind of how that worked, and I'm happy it did. I'm happy that Ross moved over to the keys and opened up some room for some new stuff, and yeah, dude, it's going well.
Did you manage to play any shows with the band before, obviously, the thing that is making everybody really bored happened?
We played two. We played
okay.
2 shows, like in the same week, I feel like, and that was it. And
I think our last show was up in Minneapolis.
Okay.
The house show at the Row House.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it was a blast.
Ton of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
is that the one where like everybody is hanging out on the roof of the front porch and shit?
That was
all I remember is
the
that
driveway was like 2 inches solid of.
So many people.
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking of a different show.
And Christian peed on it. Everyone kept slipping on it.
That did not happen.
That was weird. That was yo.
Oh, it was the ice was slippery, not the.
Yeah, it wasn't pee. There was no pee.
It's okay. Row House probably moved. I think either they had moved at that point or they had all moved away to do adult things, quote unquote, since they were all like finance majors who ran that house.
That place was cool though. That place was cool. That show we went to, that show that we played, tons of people came out and they were all super cool. And the other bands we played with were fun and everyone was having a good time. It's probably one of the coolest house shows I've ever played at. I thought it was a ton of fun.
Yeah. You mentioned the Octopus is kind of a central hub for music in Cedar Falls. Is a house venues a typical thing for kind of that area? I don't really, obviously, I really only know house shows here in Minneapolis.
But they just come and go so fast.
Yeah.
I think that people live in town for school, and then everybody switches houses every semester or two, and then if you're not going to school there, then you almost aren't really a part of that thing. And UNI's like not really all that like artsy of a school. I mean, there's a school of music there, but they're all like jazz kids. So I think that most any house shows or music shows that are going on happen at the UNI music frat or sorority or whatever they want to call it, and it's mostly like ultra nerd music nerd shit.
Fair.
There's been some houses around here. There used to be a place that's no longer here, but they would bring in like touring acts like from around the country and sometimes like out of the country. And
yeah, it's true.
And it lasted for like 5 years or something, and it was great. And I've seen it was a good place for a while, but again, these things kind of like Ross kind of come and go as people grow up and grow out of things, and things just change.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's a house venue at all around right now, or even in the past 2 years, maybe that still is kicking.
Gotcha.
The people that were running the one he's talking about, all just like you said, they've all just kind of gotten a little older than what the scene really, that kind of scene typically promotes. And so it's going to be really interesting to see if there's, when COVID ends, a year and a half or the better part of 2, if you will, it's going to be interesting to see if there's like this new little bubble of younger musicians trying to have shows or doing stuff that, maybe we don't know about.
It's true. Well, moving on April 2nd, you'll be releasing Pop Fluff, your next record, kind of following up your debut. How does it feel to be that close to releasing, the album? Is it an album or is it an EP? It's like one of those weird, it's 6 songs, so it could go either way depending on how you want to package it.
26 or 28 minutes, right? So I don't know what, I think it's maybe just the smallest amount longer than an EP. I don't know what the real designation is.
It's true.
See what the internet has to say.
While Ross searches that. I mean, I think I could speak for everybody when saying that it's a relief because we've been sitting on it for a while. Like we finished up recording actually just before like the pandemic, like, lockdown happened, because we were actually kind of talking back and forth like, oh, are we going to be able to go up and finish this thing? Like we literally have like one session left and it'll be done, and like, is this going to happen? Are they going to let us? And so that was, we've been sitting on it for a while, and it was an interesting transition part of our band, like, literally, like with Ross moving to keys and Christian to drums. Like Christian was recording some songs that we wrote without him and some songs that we wrote with him, and so it's just a mix of a perfect mix, I think, of where we were at the time. I'm just excited to share it with everybody.
Where did you record the record?
Nick, do you want to take that?
Yeah. So we recorded at this kind of magical place in Shell Rock, Iowa, which is 20 minutes north of here, probably just as small as Mechanicsville, so about 900 people. But there's a microphone manufacturing small business there.
Okay.
That manufactures microphones actually for EMI and Abbey Road.
Oh, nice.
Which is just an insane story that I don't know if I have time for. So we recorded with our buddy Seth Flew Off, who did the first record more of that, and we did it at the same spot. So it was pretty amazing we were kind of the test band for their equipment, their microphones and things like that. So we would be recording on a microphone that 3 weeks later we would see on the Abbey Road Instagram, and they've bought the mic from this place called Chandler Limited Recording. So it was an amazing experience.
That's super sick. So talk to me about creating this record, because you think of the title Pop Fluff, it seems a bit redundant in nature. You have pop music, which at times can feel like it's just fun music, and fluff, which is redundant. But once you dig into that record, it lulls you into this false sense of security that is much sinister. Once you get past the first 30-ish seconds of Cats with No Teeth, you just go, oh, this is not quite what I expected when I hit play.
Well, I think it's kind of one of those things like classically Pop Fluff has always sort of defined music that didn't need to have like all this depth and content to just be easily digested and consumed, but it's kind of a, like, maybe not a troll, but sort of a, as a listener who gets into it, like you said, that you really listen to it past the point of just digesting it, and you realize that there's substance behind everything in each song, but it can also just be consumed as simply as, wow, this is fun, and I don't have to think too hard about everything in my life. I can just enjoy this music for what it is, but also take it to your own consideration and allow yourself to analyze it to whatever depth that you really want it to be. A little long-winded. I hope that made sense.
No, yeah, it made sense. What were some of the themes you were working into these songs as you were writing them then? Because, they kind of all vary from like weirdly kind of predatory and hyper-focused to things like, I wish I had the song titles in front of me, but like Looking at Facts, which is twisting, information and kind of stuff like that, are Pretty in Pink. Talk to me about that headspace you were in as the band was putting these songs together.
Yeah, I think we're actually, people will see on the cover too when it comes out. I guess they can see it now, but we're interested in these kind of dualistic sorts of animalistic ideas, and really exploring kind of the edges of yourself and where you can go, some of that. So that's where you get those sort of, they're all kind of disparate themes and images, and every song stands on its own, so to speak. And I tend to think, I'm think of myself as a decent person, but I think deep down you can get to these dark places if you're willing to go there as an artist. And so that's kind of where John and I, who we principally write the lyrics and the songs originate with us. That's kind of where we were going with that, right, John?
Yeah, and it wasn't like we had that idea or like let's like which is kind of weird. And I think we wrote these songs and then we're like, man, what could be on the cover? And we're like, there's a lot of like dark like themes and like, you know, references to animals and whatever. And we just kind of went like, that's a whole nother story. The album cover is a bit of a trip and I'm super proud of it. But yeah, like a lot of the stuff on the album, like, you know, contributing to the whole pop fluff idea is like the songs might sound fun, but I think if you look at the lyrics or whatever, or listen to them, it's like, oh, this is like actually pretty dark or scary or depressing or whatever. And I just enjoy that contrast. I guess that's where my headspace was. Fun and depressing.
You know, it's a great combination at times. So Nick, you said you like to wrote a lot of poetry before the band. And I mean, as soon as you hit that, it really like brought me to, as I have the track list here, Pretty in Pink, which definitely feels like a spoken word poem to, you know, some sort of backing track here to kind of keep the groove going. Do you primarily then write a lot of, you know, are the lyrics primarily yours, or is that?
Yeah. So that one was John and I wrote, I think, car ride together.
Yeah. Had a lot of stuff. And I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, Nick, you need to help me try to figure out what I'm trying to say. Cause sometimes I don't know.
Yeah. But John and I too, even with the pandemic, and we've mostly been exchanging demos back and forth. We live in 5 separate households, so it's been hard to get together. So even with the new stuff, John and I have kind of gotten to this vulnerability, I think, where we are really writing songs together. And actually some of the unreleased material is starts out with words and then we put music behind it. But with Pop Fluff and I think with Pretty in Pink, I think that's how that came about. It was the words first, and then Charlie's wrote the guitar part, and we built the whole song around the words. So you're right on.
Yeah. So with these songs, what was it? Do you, especially with Ross, you kind of fill a producer type role? Is that producing vibe kind of coming in right from the beginning as you're working on these songs? Or is it like for Chuck and Chris, is that as soon as you hear these demos, is it kind of all hands on deck to finish the track? Or
I think that like John and Nick kind of have initial roadmaps and ideas, and sometimes the songs are more finished than not. Sometimes it's the other way around. But I think that I kind of help them organize their thoughts and usually steer the songs in somewhat of a different direction than they start. Christian and Charlie are icing on the cake, and that the moment that you start having 5 people play together on a song that 1 or 2 people originally wrote, and then a third person is trying to steer it another way, then you throw 2 more people on it, then the song really, I think, develops as a whole. But I suppose it really depends on if it's conceptually or if it's musically, or stylistically for that matter. I think that the songs always seem to start in a little bit different of a style than I end up taking them in. I think that they usually have a clear path from start to finish, and Charlie and Christian really add to the overall style and feel of it with their own musical personalities. But I think that my role is more taking them to a farther place down the road, if you will.
Gotcha.
I will say I definitely rely on my buddies to help me focus and like figure out where the hell I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
Can I share on that?
Well, yeah, it's a podcast, not a radio show. We don't have any FCC guidelines to fine us thousands and thousands of dollars.
Hell,
Shit, yeah.
But Chuck and Chris, you have anything to add when working on this record? Moments that you listened to or really stood out, or?
Well, just add to everything that's been said. Like, I'm sometimes like in the construction phase with both Nick and John. Like, we still work, the three of us together, pretty often. We'd like to communicate and stuff. And so I'm sometimes in like the building the roadmap, but there is definitely like, is this song prepared enough to present to everyone as a whole, or do we have more bugs to fix ourselves, kind of thing? Sometimes we, like Ross said, because when we present a song to Ross, it usually does shift into something completely different by the time we decide together that the song is done. So it gets to definitely like a point where like, okay, now we can show it to Ross. But on the other side of that, I don't think any of us would ever say that no one is allowed to contribute. Like, anyone can contribute at any time. Mm-hmm. If Christian wants to go to our, drive with all the demos in it and say like, oh, this is awesome, here's an idea I had, like, definitely listen to it. Anyone can be involved in any step of the process. So.
Mm-hmm.
I think also just sitting here thinking about it while we were talking, I think our band with Christian would be in a much different place if COVID hadn't happened, because he joined the band and started performing with us, which is like a big slope up to getting to be comfortable just playing with people that you're not used to playing with. And then at the same time, we're trying to finish and release a record, and then everything gets kind of curbed. Where if it wouldn't have got curbed, we would have just been spending the last year and a half all trying to hive mind, practice, jamming on new stuff. And we would have never had to like we're just starting to get back to rehearsing again. So we're finding ourselves trying to get back in shape rather than just having spent like a year or a year and a half hanging out, jamming, writing as a group, and just having fun doing it that way. It's just a different dynamic, and I think that it's going to be real interesting to see what the vaccine brings our future.
Yeah. Chris, as the new member going into the studio, like you kind of mentioned earlier, you had some songs you had played before, some songs you hadn't, or not played before, or been a part of the writing process, some hadn't. What was it like being that new member going into a place like a studio, trying to make sure, this album came out?
Well, it's it can't be more of like an unorthodox way to join a band. Like Ross said, like the timing of everything. I joined the band. We had a bunch of band practices, played 2 shows with them, and then recorded a record with them, and then haven't done anything for a year. So I've been in the band like technically like really for like 40 hours, dude. I've been in this band. So
his probation period ended though. He's starting in this shit.
We do not pay minimum.
But 7-month probation period normally when you go to a big time new job. Shit, he's way past.
Yeah, again, unorthodox. It's weird, but it feels good to be getting back to things. I feel like the year off brought a lot of challenges, but also brought a lot of new solutions to a lot of different things with how we communicate and how we work with each other. And I think that's a good thing to some degree. I think that it's definitely given us some new tools that we didn't know we could be using, and we're using them, which is really cool. But like Ross said, I'm really excited to see what happens once things really start getting better, and once the band can really start doing things. Sorry about that again.
No worries. Ear Coffee is a pro animal podcast where we're okay with all noises. Something mentioned earlier when we were talking about kind of, you know, creating the record is the album cover itself was brought up, was just the duality that is kind of explored throughout Pop Fluff. Talk to me a little more about that. What kind of, were you working with like one specific like thought in your brain as you were trying to navigating, or was there a couple of instances that was kind of influencing those songwriting sessions? Talk to me more about that.
We can take one example. So Cats with No Teeth, which y'all did an awesome write-up of, and we really appreciate that. So that was begun. It took a moment. It was written from a moment. I was leaving a show at the Octopus, and it almost sounds like a cliche, but encountered a small group of broy guys, and they were ready to pick a fight with me. They, you know, said something disparaging to me as I was going by. I'd had maybe a little too much to drink, so I kind of gave it back to them. Lo and behold, we have this sort of encounter, and it got pretty tense and could have probably ended up worse than it did, which is just me kind of walking away. But I left that moment feeling like, you know, very helpless, pretty helpless in the moment, really wired, manic.
Yeah.
And these kind of words fell out of my mouth as I think I was telling it to John or Charlie, who hadn't been there, happenstance. But just, you know, I'd like to, you know, eat their spaghetti brains or something like that. It kind of came out, and then that took that idea and really formed the rest of the song. So that kind of came from a moment of being put in a situation where, you know, feeling like you want to give it back to them, you know, make them as scared as they made me feel. You know, so that's one example of somebody being put in a situation that brings out something darker, you know, that perhaps lurks beneath the surface as we navigate and buzz around our everyday lives.
Is that kind of a similar thing, since you like their Rabid Creature, which I was reading, it was the Near North or whatever, talk to them about that premiere for that video, which was exploring kind of the ends of yourself a little bit for that song too then?
Yeah, so John wrote that one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a similar vibe. It was kind of that one of the words there, the lines, kill or be killed, eat or be eaten, and that kind of comes from one of our good friends, Audrey Robinson, who used to manage Octopus, and she's now at Little Thistle, but she had an elephant tattoo that said stomp or be stomped, and it kind of just remind me, you know, of like, you know, the whole illusion of Iowa nice. Like everyone says, oh heck, like you guys are too nice. You guys need to be like more of an asshole to get what you want, and you're just gonna get walked all over. And I don't know, that's kind of what fueled, I guess, those words, stomp or be stomped and whatnot. So
gotcha. Since we were talking about Cats with No Teeth prior, I did want to ask, because in that write-up, I failed to notice the QAnon references in that music video. Literally just now, like 20 minutes before we started this call, my finger brushed across like the YouTube video, and I got the preview, and I was like, oh, that says adrenochrome. Whose idea was that to throw into that video?
Yeah, so I wrote that video.
Okay.
And what you'll see, you know, we have the encounter. The singer leaves the stage and encounters the broy guys, which happen to have red hats on.
Yep.
So it was kind of, the original idea was recreating that moment in some way and doing more with it. And I wrote it around, I think it was June 2020. Since we couldn't do anything else, we decided to make these series of videos. And it's hard to remember now, but there was a time where QAnon was only kind of mentioned in news headlines.
Yeah.
Now it's a daily occurrence.
It's everywhere.
Storm the Capitol. everything. But so I went kind of deep into some of those earlier message boards around that time, and just was listening to some of these ideas that were thrown around, what I could encounter of those message boards. But I mean, adrenochrome came out. That's the drug that Tom Hanks is eating a baby to try to
fear induced. It's bananas. I don't understand.
Yeah. So we wanted to poke fun at that, and so then I become kind of the embodiment of what their worst fear is, as the liberal kind of glammy lead singer who ends up, eating them in fire. So that's the idea there.
Did you write all the music videos then, or was that kind of a trade between a couple people? Because you worked with like the same set of people based on what I saw in the credits. But
So I worked with officially Dante Diablo, who is a friend of ours and is actually a member of Ross's other band. He's a very talented filmmaker himself. But predominantly me and him worked together in the band as well, pitching in ideas. But those were a lot of fun.
I do want to jump back, since I did get a little bit ahead of myself. John, you mentioned the album cover has a bit of a story behind it. You kind of referred to it as a bit of a trip. Talk to me about that story of the record cover for Pop Fluff.
Sure. I don't know if I might have misspoke. I don't know if I meant it was so much story. I just think the cover itself, like everyone we show,
was
just like, what is this? This is awesome. Or what? It was my brother just kind of going down this like little manic like path of like, we're gonna relate this to like Animalia, like kingdom, phylum, order, genus, species, like science textbook, and this, and I was like, sure. Like just kind of I was like yeah, show me what it looks like when you're done. Much like the Cats with No Teeth video. Like, what's funny is that I didn't, like, Nick and Dante Diablo were mentioning all the QAnon stuff, and I wasn't like necessarily skeptical, but I was like, what is this? I haven't heard of it. I don't know what this is, but I'm just gonna go with what you guys are saying. And it's funny what that's turned into today. But yeah, the cover was more of just, kind of a crazy little rabbit hole of thoughts, and also trying to tie the songs together after we finished recording them. Like, they weren't, like I said, there wasn't a preconceived like concept or any, like, we just listened to the songs and we're like, man, what is this? What do these 6 songs mean? And I tried to put a picture to that.
Did you create the album cover, or was that?
No, we had another person do that work for us, but yeah, it was just my largely Nick's idea.
Gotcha. Just a few more questions as we wrap up here tonight. So you got some stuff coming up here potentially this summer, as hopefully nothing changes with COVID restrictions. What do you got coming up as a band?
Yep. So we're the big show on the horizon is we're playing Hinterland Music Festival, which is, I would say, Iowa's biggest music festival with some big names, and it's going to be a lot of fun. They have limitations on capacity, so they do have and other safety protocols, but we were very eager and to hear that they were going forward with that. We found that out probably a month ago, so great.
Gotcha. And then where can people connect with Hex Girls online?
Hexgirls.com. Everything you need to know is there. We're on all the social medias as well.
Gotcha. And you're doing for the album release, you got vinyl and shirts and all that fun stuff for people to pick up?
Yep, we got EP will be on 10-inch vinyl. And we have the Pop Fluff collection. We got sweatshirts, t-shirts, stash jars for your tea. So we've got some goodies.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sitting down here on this Tuesday night and talking with me.
Appreciate it, Joe.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.